Coming up today on Seahawks Forever, powered by BetUS. For the third straight year, Chris Perfett of Fox Sports Radio and Pride of Detroit joins me to preview yet another early season Seahawks game at Detroit. And this one, as good as those games have been, as exciting as they have been, might have the most at stake. Two teams that appear to be on their way to contending in the NFC. At least that's the hope here in Seattle. Certainly that has become a perennial hope now in Detroit with where that program is. We're going to get an update from Chris on some of the injury situations, some key players maybe out or at least not at 100% for the Lions. We're going to talk about what's going on with their offense. Some people are questioning Ben Johnson's play calling early in the season, as it's been the defense that has carried them to a 2-1 record more so than the offense. We'll talk about some of their personnel, their star young pass rusher on defense, and a certain linebacker that I like. And we'll try and get Chris's opinion about what's going on with that secondary in Detroit. They have struggled mightily. Might that be the weakness that the Seahawks can exploit? So we are doing full preview of Lions and Seahawks coming up next with Chris Perfett on Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring this episode. You can support the show and the channel in a number of ways. The most obvious, and actually the most important way, is just hitting that thumbs up, subscribing to the channel, hit that bell for notification of future episodes so you never miss one. But all the other ways are also listed down in the description below. Let's get to this. Chris has been kind enough to take some time. Again, this has become an annual tradition. And Chris is fun. He usually gets some reaction in the comments, and I like that. But this is a matchup that has become something that we're used to seeing. I mentioned in our conversation that it's sort of taken the place of what used to be Seattle at Carolina years ago, where it just seemed like no matter where each team finished, somehow the scheduling algorithm worked in that way. And yet again, the Seahawks traveled to Detroit, undefeated, first place in their division. The Lions at 2-1. They are in second place behind the undefeated Minnesota Vikings. We'll get Chris's take on the Vikings and how good he thinks they really are through 3 games. Seattle leads the series all time 13-5. They have won 9 of the last 10. They have won the last 5 straight. Dan Campbell has never beat the Seahawks as head coach of the Lions. And they have been epic matchups the last 2 years. The big shootout in 2022, 48-45, which was really, I think, kind of the coming out party for Geno Smith, where he really exploded and sort of served notice that this was the type of quarterback he could be. And then last year, the exciting overtime win as the Seahawks marched down the field, the walk-off throw to Tyler Lockett to finish that one off. I expect we're going to see similar fireworks this year. So let's get into this conversation with Chris Perfett of Pride of Detroit. Well, in what has most definitely become an annual tradition, Chris Perfett of Pride of Detroit and Fox Sports Radio joins me once again to preview an early season Seahawks game in Detroit. This time, though, it gets the national TV treatment, Monday Night Football under the lights. Chris, welcome back on the show. How are you, man?
As you say, it's a tradition like no other. We put it up there with Alabama, Tennessee. We're going to put it up there with Cyhawk. What other middling college football traditions can I really compare this to? Is there? I mean,
here
Farmageddon?
In the Northwest, it's the Apple Cup, although it's it's not.
But that's end of the year. We're
talking because we're not in the same conference anymore.
Yeah, I'm talking something like Iowa State, where it's like that's a rivalry, but it's not one worthy of putting on the last week in November when everyone's home from Thanksgiving. No. This is a like, that's right. We'll do this tradition, right? No, this is Notre Dame Navy.
It's funny how it keeps working out this way with the schedule, and it's always early. I think 3 years ago it was week 2.
It was week 2, yeah.
But last year it was week 4, and this year, once again, here we are, week 4. And, there are some differences. Obviously, Seattle made the big change in the offseason, new coaching staff. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the Lions, from their perspective, they had the 49ers on the ropes in the playoffs last year. They were everyone's darling last year. That was really the breakthrough season. This year they came in with incredibly high expectations. They lose the home game to the Bucs in week 2, so they sit at 2-1 in second place in their division because of the Vikings. My goodness. How is Detroit Nation, Lions Nation, feeling about this Lions team after 3 weeks?
Well, I would say, first off, to rewind there, too, a little bit, is also, you do also have, and I think people immediately go to that San Francisco game and ignore that. That was also 2 playoff wins for a team that hadn't had a playoff win in 30 years on top of all that. And I'd like to remind people of that each time they start going to San Francisco. I'm like, I understand they lost away San Francisco, but also the first 2 playoff wins. For the first 2 weeks, first 3 weeks, excuse me, the feeling for Detroit is still one of extremely high expectations. There is some growing pains to be done, especially when it comes to something like the secondary, which was massively overhauled both in free agency and in the draft.
Yeah.
But as this team is taken to the field, it's a bit of a different look. The Lions have shown through 3 weeks they have a top 10 defense. The offense, however, is not exactly what people have anticipated. This is a team that was one of the highest scoring offenses last year, and through, I believe, 3 weeks, it is now 52 points, all said and done, which still sounds like a lot, but, I mean, look, scoring's down across the entire NFL right now. Either way, the Lions aren't hanging like 30, so people are getting a little bit antsy outside of Detroit. Inside Detroit, it's a lot about how the play calling has kind of gone down with the offense, especially from the Buccaneers game, but I would say that the Bucs loss was one that kind of reminded people that football is tough, it's difficult, and it brought back some people a little bit nervous about the team, but I'm not one of those people. I think that a football season is long, arduous, and I think so far the Lions have shown themselves fairly well in the first few games. They had 2 revenge games right out of the gate in Ford Field with 2 teams who were, I liked the Rams almost to win the division before that game in Ford Field turned them into a walking mash unit.
Yeah, same.
Complete with Jamie Farr and the theme and the music and the TV theme. And before the Buccaneers kind of lost Vita Vea, and those were 2 incredibly good teams right there. I think the Bucs are still winning that. I think both those teams I pegged as like early division winners, and the Cardinals obviously came into their game 2-0, having dropped 40 on aforementioned Rams, and were feeling very good. So I think there's been this expectation that the start of the schedule is always going to provide itself as the toughest part for the Detroit Lions.
Well, and Seahawks fans are certainly thankful. The 2 wins coming against the Rams and the Cardinals, so it's helped the Seahawks' current lead in their division. Now, flip side, kind of the 360 long distance view before we get into some more detailed minutia. How do the Lions? How do you and what's your perception of what the feeling is there in Detroit about the opponent this week? Seahawks are 3-0. People are starting to talk about them. They're rising up in the power rankings. Mike Macdonald's getting a lot of kudos, and yet through 3 games, the easiest schedule so far in the league, and they've faced some quarterbacks that were gave him a little softer landing in Mike Macdonald's first foray as an NFL head coach to kind of get their feet under them. How are we feeling there about this Seahawks team coming in as an opponent?
All right, I'm going to try to answer this as best I can and also try to be the heel that I think your audience needs as well. On one hand,
let it rip.
I think for Lions fans, they get a little bit of a gut check every time they see the Seahawks on the schedule, because this is a team that has, through the history, had the Detroit Lions number. We mentioned last year as well. It was kind of one of the more gut-wrenching losses to start the year. There's been other years priors where the Seahawks just stomp on them. They don't seem to have an answer for what the Seahawks brought, especially last year where it was involving Geno Smith and how they were able to run on the team. And for the large part, the Lions have never really been a good defense in stopping running quarterbacks. Yeah, they contained Kyler Murray last week, but the zone that they play under Aaron Glenn's, the man they play under Aaron Glenn's system isn't really conducive to stopping a lot of running quarterbacks. On the other hand, in the words of a random caller to the Paul Feinbaum show, Paul, they ain't played nobody. The Patriots, Broncos, early seasons. You get, who was it, Skylar Thompson and Lions' old friend Tim Boyle in the Miami Dolphins game. I think the Seahawks are showing themselves. We have to talk about it later on our own podcast at Pride of Detroit, but they're showing themselves as a curious and interesting defensive unit up front, and I think that will provide an interesting challenge for the Detroit Lions, especially since the O-line is still trying to get things going, and that I think Frank Ragnow is now week to week, which could be a huge blow for them. But
right.
I think the Lions fans don't think this is not an insult. The Lions fans don't think much of the Seahawks because the Lions fans, I think, only really think about their team. They just look at something else on the schedule. They see the record. They probably see a few of the other games, but I don't think they know too much about what this team is. I don't think anyone knows who their teams are right now. As we said, the Seahawks are 3-0. They've shown good defensive outings, but it's also against opponents that are just kind of middling. And but I also at the same time, I realize the NFL is week to week and nothing is ever set in stone anyway. So who the hell knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Gino certainly has enjoyed playing in Detroit. Almost identical statistical games the last 2 years, basically 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Jared Goff has played well against the Seahawks as well. A couple of big outings. He threw for, let's see, I got this here, don't I? Here it is, found it. 328 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. 2 years ago, 378 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. So outstanding outings for Goff. I'm sure that Monday Night Football will make that the focal point on Monday night, or one of the storylines. However, Seahawks have their struggles this year and their Achilles heel, and it's been this way for years. And the thing that's causing the most skepticism is the performance of their interior offensive line. Now they go up against maybe the premier pass rusher in the NFL now in Aiden Hutchinson, who just seems to get better and more comfortable and more dominant each and every year. Where do you view him now this is year 3, right?
Yes.
Like kind of on the pantheon of upper echelon pass rushers in the NFL and his status. The leap that he's taken this year?
This is his prove year that I think will end up proving him correct. Now, the first game, I believe he did not have DJ Reader against the Rams. Then he had DJ Reader to help him with in the Buccaneers game, and that's the one where he recorded 4.5 sacks.
Yeah.
However, there is an issue that look, I mean, a line is a unit, and losing Marcus Davenport for the year is going to hurt, because this is kind of the problem that Aiden Hutchinson had last year, in that he really didn't have help on the other side, so teams could throw everything at him. And I need to go watch the tape again. I'm not sure exactly what teams are doing or how they're getting away with clotheslining him, but I'm seeing what we have come to term Waluigi arms out of him nonstop, as people just seem to be able to just throw an elbow around his neck and do whatever they so please, because that's life in the NFL now, apparently, and all he can do is just kind of wave his arms for a flag. That said, he's productive, and that's something that you would see him last year, where it's you are just a step away from hitting him. You will rack up a quarterback hit, but you're just a step away from a sack, and it's so close. The amount of pressure he puts on people is tremendous. And I would say that even without the sack numbers, his ability to get into the backfield very quickly and create chaos is the main strength. And it's something the Lions have predicated themselves on since they got him, is that they want the pass rush to serve as the something to force a quarterback to make a mistake. And Aiden Hutchinson is the straw that stirs that drink. He gets back there. He's now, granted, he has been playing against a lot of backup right tackles as of late. I believe that
he will be again this week,
and he will be again. He will be again. But the
right tackle 3, actually. Yeah,
I believe that was the same case for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they were pulling a guy from the practice squad, and even pulling the running back out to try to cut and he was still getting around them and going directly after Baker Mayfield. So now the difference is I think that there's Baker Mayfield at least is aware in the pocket. I'm curious to see what he will do against Geno Smith. But again, this is the year where I feel like for Aiden Hutchinson, he's starting to fully put it together. Now we'll see what happens, how much help the rest of the line gives him, because these things are units at the end of the day. And if you just have one guy, it's easy to kind of take him out. But I think that, this is what we were happy about when the Jaguars made the decision to pass him over for Trayvon Walker, I believe, and
how's that working out for Jacksonville?
Well, nothing's working out for Jacksonville. Trayvon Walker is the least of their worries right now, if we're being completely honest. That is a team that every year you put them on paper and it's like, oh, this should work. Why the hell is it not working? Oh my God. But yeah, no, Aiden Hutchinson, this is the year where I feel like it's kind of the pieces are starting to fit. And that's what I am most excited about.
Catch me up on injuries. You've touched on a couple of them. Marcus Davenport, Derek Barnes had to go on injured reserve,
which is a huge one. They don't really have anyone else to really play that kind of Sam linebacker that Barnes can play. It's really put them in a hole because I mean they've got Jack Campbell, Anzalone's coming off some concussion protocol stuff, but they don't have no one else really to play that Sam role as well as Barnes. Sorry, continue.
Oh, no. And even up front, I was going to mention, a guy that I've had a crush on ever since he came out in the draft as a small school guy. John Kaminsky hasn't been available yet to you this year. He's on injured reserve. But then on offense, Frank Ragnow, you mentioned him, torn pectoral muscle. It sounds like he might not have to go on IR. They're calling it day-to-day or week-to-week, but then Dan Campbell emphasized Frank's a fighter. He wants to play, but we're going to do what's best for him, what's best for the team. Is he going to play on Monday?
It's a possibility. There's two things going in the Lions' favor right now. Number one is that this is a Monday game, and number two is after this game, the Lions go on bye, which originally when we were looking at the schedule, I always hate early bye weeks, but this is good for the Lions right now that I can't have, more injuries down the line, and these kind of things never really go away. But Frank Ragnow is absolutely like they'd have to probably kick Graham Glasgow inside and then hope that Coyote Owosika, who is someone they've been developing for a long time, is someone who can come in and play Glasgow's guard position. Okay. But we talked about it through a lot of the preseason. Line depth was going to be something that was going to be a little bit of a problem, and it did not get better when Christian Mahogany, I believe, got himself hurt early on as well. And, what else they have on the roster? Giovanni Manu is kind of a long project. Dan Skipper is a swing tackle. They carry a lot. Colby Sorsdahl is still something of a project, and they can't decide if he's a guard or a tackle. They've got projects in their depth. No one who's really set. I mean, nobody's ever set, but it's not exactly like they've got career backups either going in there. So it's not a situation they really want to be into. And Frank Ragnow, in my mind, is one of the best centers right now in the league with Kelsey retired at this point. And unfortunately, he just kind of always deals with these nagging week-to-week injuries, but he's absolutely someone who deletes interior pressure. Now, I don't think it's been as effective this year at deleting interior pressure. The Lions had a 3-man rush that completely did not get picked up against the Cardinals, but I think that gets a little bit even worse if Frank's on the game. The other injuries, I believe Brian Branch, their safety, is in concussion protocol. Brian Branch last year was playing a lot of slot corner. He's a pure safety now. He is a monster. I believe he had a pick in that Cardinals game. Him and Kirby Joseph, I think, is probably one of the better two safety tandems right now in the league, and they've had several interceptions already through the season. I believe Kirby Joseph has 2 in the end zones as well. So we'll see if Branch clears concussion protocol for that. I don't know who they'd throw in there. If Fatu Melifonwu, perhaps, but he's more of a pass rush safety. Or probably Brandon Joseph perhaps might get called up. But I think, Branch would be a huge blow for them in that regard. Ali McNeil and Sam, defensive tackle, is day-to-day. He's a guy who eats a lot of run, and the Lions haven't let anyone run on them to this point. And then probably most important for fantasy manager Sam Laporta, their tight end, is day to day, and he had a slow start to this season, but I think Cardinals game was where Jared Goff remembered that he existed. And look, I mean, it's more than just his pass catching. Sam Laporta is a do-it-all tight end, and you kind of want that out there so you're not tipping your hand one-dimensionally on that. Now, I mean, they work Brock Wright in quite a bit, but there's no one quite like Sam Laporta. He had a tremendous rookie season, and the Lions kind of look at him and Amon-Ra St. Brown as these 1-2 punches on the middle of the field.
It's ankle for Laporta, right?
I believe so. Yeah,
I think I saw it. But it's a low ankle, not the dreaded high
ankle sprain. Yeah, it's not the Justin Herbert. It's a low ankle sprain. Yeah. So I think he's day to day, but I think you should expect to see him play.
And just to clarify, you're saying you think the move if Ragnow can't go is Graham Glasgow moves over to center, not Michael Neese, the who's listed as the backup on the depth chart, but very little experience.
Glasgow plays center as well as guard, and he's done so before. And when we've had these situations where Ragnow has been out, Glasgow has kicked over to center, and usually a guard takes over. Neese is I actually do not remember much of Neese from preseason, to be honest, unless it was like Team 3.
Yeah, he's only appeared in 3 games in his career. Maybe the fact you don't remember him much from preseason kind of.
No, this is just how they've used Glasgow for several years. Like he has that center experience.
One thing that I thought was interesting is both the Seahawks and the Lions last year faced the Baltimore Ravens with Mike Macdonald running that defense. Both had very remarkably similar struggles against that defense and that scheme. The Ravens beat the Lions 38-6. They destroyed the Seahawks 37-3. That was the game that kind of served as a calling card for Macdonald and got John Schneider to maybe add him to his little notebook that he had in his desk for, when it was time to break glass, when Pete Carroll retired. It's a different look than the Lions have seen the last couple of years under what had become an increasingly struggling Pete Carroll scheme as he tried to adapt his last couple of years. Is there some concern that now you're going up against that Ravens style defense that they had trouble kind of decoding last year?
It's tough to say. Mostly just because of the personnel involved sometimes when it comes to the Baltimore Ravens. And I believe a lot of the problem in that game ultimately was that it's tough to say when guys go between teams. Like one of the things that the Lions did not have going for them last year was they were still trying to work in someone like Jameson Williams into their offense, who was quiet against the Cardinals, but then turned around and became had 2 great games to start the year. They also didn't have David Montgomery in that game. He was, I believe, hurt that part of the season after the Buccaneers game that year. And as we have learned through 3 games so far, David Montgomery is a bowling ball that
Rams
really cannot be stopped.
Yeah.
Well, not just that, but he was getting like there were plays in the Cardinals game where he would like start running, stay on his feet, and the O lineman would come over and like literally he would say he wasn't touching the ground. He would be picked up as this giant Katamari would start rolling down the field for an extra 5 yards.
Yeah. It was like he was Montgomery.
He is the definition of angry runs for the fans of Good Morning Football out there.
Mm-hmm.
He is a man who, along with Jahmyr Gibbs, like it's a yin-yang tandem that really works. Gibbs has kind of been struggling to get off a little bit, but he still has some explosive plays here and there. But the Lions like having Montgomery, and they did not have Montgomery in that Ravens game. And I think that really characterized a lot of stuff for them as they were playing there. I mean, my memory of last year is kind of a little faded to this point. I don't remember their red zone. They didn't have any red zone trips. I'm just looking right now. But I don't know if that's a terrible issue for the Lions right now. They've got other issues on their offense they're kind of working through, namely with play calling and with Jared Goff for the time being. But I didn't even put those pieces together.
let's talk about that just a little bit, because, Ben Johnson was the belle of the ball in the offseason, right? Everyone wanted to interview him. Everyone wanted to hire him. They all had to wait because the Lions advanced so deep in the playoffs. And then he stunned pretty much everyone in the league. I think we were all surprised here. I don't know about you in Detroit, but I want to get your feelings on that he decided to turn down the Commanders' opportunity and stay in Detroit to try and win a championship. Here you are 3 weeks in, and you're questioning his play calling. What's happening there?
Well, it's mostly in that Tampa Bay game, which, I mean, look, there's no reason on God's green earth for Jared Goff to throw the ball 55 times. And there's no reason on God's green earth to be 1-7 in the red zone. I think you can have bad games. We have to see on the whole what it's been. And look, I've also taken this approach that scoring is down across the entire league right now. Offense is down across the entire league right now. And some people have rational explanations for that. Other people jump on ESPN and scream that we need to ban high safeties, 2 high safeties and shell defenses and tilt this game even further to the offense until you're just not allowed to play defense, I guess. We just kind of
Stick to the draft, Mel Kiper.
Look, draft. I like Mel. He's been around for a really long time, but I don't. That was just a complete overreaction. I'm actually happy to see that offense is down, and not only that offense is down. I don't even think that's even correct that offense is down. A lot of teams are doing what the Lions have and the 49ers and the Eagles have been predicating themselves, which is running the ball a hell of a lot more. And when you run the ball, the clock runs down faster. When the clock runs down faster, games end faster. There's less chances for scoring. It's a balance of things. But yeah, quarterbacks haven't been able to throw deep on anyone, and that's kind of where we're at. I also understand that I believe the context of that whole thing was that some of his darling young quarterbacks are kind of in a struggle for that. I think that's more of a factor of, say, the Panthers more than offense, more than 2 high safeties. But yeah, no, Ben Johnson turned down not just the Commanders' job, which there was the talk that these guys were just basketball owners at the end of the day, and they were kind of. I think the Commanders' ownership had some role to play in why he turned it down as well. The Carolina job was a bullet he dodged entirely. I believe that he thinks he can pick and choose where his job's going to come. I say good luck, because there's always going to be a new hotness out there, right? Every year for this stuff. I think through the first couple of they're feeling a couple things. Number one, the variety of their receivers. I mentioned Jameson Williams. They do have that, but they've also lost Josh Reynolds, and I really cannot state how much Josh Reynolds was a real gamer and someone who had a lot of familiarity with Jared Goff. And by losing him, you've kind of lost a bit of variety in your passing. In your receiving core. It's the same targets I see every time on the box scores: St. Brown, Laporta, Brock Wright getting involved, Gibbs, Montgomery, Jameson Williams showing up a little bit. But those other passes out to guys like Reynolds and Khalif Raymond have basically disappeared. Now, they did move up Tim Patrick from the practice squad. They picked him up from Denver's discard pile, and they've, I think, have been trying to work him into the offense. I believe they signed him to the full 53-man roster this year, and this week, and I think you could expect to see him there. But I think that's kind of the main problem right now where it comes to play calling, is sometimes they're not trusting to go with the run where they probably should. Gibbs hasn't been as effective to start. I think he'll figure things out. He's a young guy. And that they just haven't had the multitude variety to have it. They don't have a change-up pitch for their receivers right now. Everyone knows at this point who Amon-Ra St. Brown is. Everyone knows at this point who Sam Laporta is. They're still learning who Jameson Williams is, but he's also, still putting things together, and he's, being worked in quite a few different ways. But they don't have that second level of guys who it's like, oh, I did not expect him to catch the ball. Oh, he can catch the ball. And I think that's a tool that's really missing from Ben Johnson's kit right now. And he's really looking forward to it. And I think that their hope is that maybe they can find that in someone like Tim Patrick.
Interesting that you mentioned Josh Reynolds. We faced him week 1, obviously. He's with the Broncos now. And I'll tell you what, man, he was the best receiver on the field that day for the Broncos. Not Cortland Sutton. Was not
it's a great
Cortland
pickup
Sutton
for
at
them.
all.
He is a guy who loves to work with quarterbacks to their strengths. And when I saw that, I'm like, that is going to be Bo Nix's best friend out there.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be their best friend. He's going to be their best friend because he's a veteran receiver. He's old, which is always a bad sign in the league. And I don't think his production will really keep up through the season. You know, he's 29 right now, which is, you know, almost dinosaur age for a receiver sometimes. Yeah. But look, he's a gamer out there. He's one of those guys. There's a few former Lions. Former Lions are usually easy for a lot of us to root for. There's not a lot of guys where it's like, well, bye. Maybe C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but I love his sass. But yeah, Josh Reynolds I root for. Jamal Williams I root for. Yeah, especially with his Egyptian cats. But yeah,
we're both cat guys. In case you didn't know.
Yeah. Go look up on Jamal Williams Twitter for the folks at home. Jamal Williams Twitter. I don't remember his handle. Is like Swag Kazi. Oh, J Swag Daddy with 2 G's. But Saints didn't win last week, so you won't see it. But he does do Victory Cat Mondays.
Are those the hairless cats?
Yes, he's got 2 of them, and they are sweet gremlins. They are sweet looking gremlins.
I know what I'm doing when we're done here. And then there were 5. That's how many undefeated teams there are in the NFL as we sit here today. The Seahawks, of course, one of them. Do you feel good about their chances to go 4-0? Do you want to put your money where your mouth is? Over at BetUS, they're going to help you do that. With the promo code YouTube150, they're going to give you a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% sign-up bonus on your second and third deposits, up to $2,000. Head on over to BetUS, start your account today, use the promo code YouTube150. And that's not all. I have another promo code for you. This one, Seahawks. The folks at manscaped.com have put together quite the package for your personal grooming needs. It is the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra All-in-One Grooming Kit. This is their all-star lineup, man. It includes a Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra Groin Body Hair Trimmer. You've heard of it. Over 10 million men have taken advantage of these products. The Weed Whacker 2.0 Ear and Nose Hair Trimmer. It comes with a bunch of free gifts. It comes with a ball aftercare kit. Yes, I said it. Post-shave, give your most valuable players the TLC that they deserve. Again, head on over to manscaped.com. Use the promo code Seahawks. You will get free shipping plus 20% off this all-in-one grooming kit. Let's talk about the Lions defensively. If there's one area that's causing some hand-wringing and consternation looking forward to Monday, I would imagine it's that defensive back group, especially if Brian Branch can't go, facing the weapons that the Seahawks present. DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett, speaking of dinosaur receivers who just keeps on ticking and keeps on making plays. If you look just at the PFF grades, right, which, take those with a grain of salt, but at least it gives us some level of comparison, not kind to Carlton Davis and Terrion Arnold. What's happening there? Is it just a matter of growing pains on Arnold's part? Is there some scheme issues, or are they closer to being effective in coverage than the grades might indicate?
Terrion Arnold, if I am not mistaken, is right now one of the most penalized cornerbacks in the National Football League at present. And that seems to be his big issue. And a lot of that is some welcome to the NFL. You really can't play like you're at Alabama anymore. Not saying they don't have fast receivers down there, but there's a lot of times where it looks like he's just trying to get used to how the game goes out there and just how ticky-tack sometimes these DPI penalties can really be. There's been a few penalties he's drawn where I just completely disagree with it, but that's kind of life in the NFL right now. You breathe on a receiver wrong and they'll just start burning you for it. Carlton Davis, I don't know. It feels like this whole unit, again, this is a whole unit that was built out from scratch at the end of last year. You lose Rakestraw, who I believe is kind of out for a while now too. Emmanuel Mosley already went on IR. The only one who's really had time here before that is probably like, depth guys, Khalil Dorsey and Kindle Vildor. Everyone else is basically brand new and fresh in this. So I think there is some adjustment to Aaron Glenn's man coverage. I would also say that depending on their opponents sometimes, like definitely when it came to the Rams, the goal was don't let them beat you deep. Just kind of make the tackles, and that still allowed Puka Nacua, and then later in that game, Cooper Kupp, to really start to rack up some yards because they're great yak receivers. But I think they were a little more effective in what they were doing against the Cardinals. Now, a lot of that I think was also that they kind of like took Kyler Murray and they forced him to hurry his passes along. But Marvin Harrison Jr. was very quiet in the second half.
Yeah.
He was very, and there was a lot of times where Kyler Murray would just kind of throw that ball up there hoping to pull something down and nothing would happen. So they're settling in, but they're still trying to, again, this is a unit that hasn't really played together at all. And so far in the first 3 weeks have been asked to cover three very good, but also three very different offenses between the Rams, Bucks, and Cardinals. The Bucks in particular, we do this every year, but I don't think we give enough credit to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. I think people are finally giving the credit to Baker Mayfield out there, but that's a team that, I know they just got smoked by the Broncos and everything. That's kind of life. Last week 3 was weirdo week for the NFL, but through those weeks, it was two great offenses, and it's a trial by fire for those guys, especially for Terry and Arnold, who, we have to remember, rookie corners do take adjustment to the NFL, and he's really in the sweat box right now.
Talk to me about another guy on defense, because this is a dude that I just absolutely loved in the draft, and I'm a mock draft addict. I would try to manipulate my mock drafts so I could get this guy last year because there was a huge need coming up for the Seahawks, and I never could just because of where he fell. But Jack Campbell is a dude that I just love. He's a throwback. He's kind of looks a lot more like a 1986 linebacker in the NFL than a 2024. Wasn't a full-time starter his rookie year. This year, it seems like he's established himself there in the middle. Talk to me about the player he's becoming.
He's definitely coming into his own right now. So I thought for a while that the second life that Alex Anzalone has been finding would kind of overshadow and really keep him in a bit of limited use, but he's starting to really get onto the field a little bit more, and especially in the run game, just part of the core that's just kind of eating up things right now. They are, I believe the Lions right now rank third in, I don't know if this is actually true anymore, because I'm just, no, it is. Okay, just making sure my stats are right. Right now they're third in NFL in third down percentage allowing, and fourth in rushing yards allowed per attempt. So they have they've been using him quite well to start to shut those things down, and I know he's kind of hitting the next level in his development and starting to really come around. It's just a matter of the positions where he's working at are ones that he is starting to see some time out in the field. I believe they're starting to play him a lot more at the will, and putting him out there with Alex Anzalone. So it's a chance for him to really get out there and just be a disruptive force. He's someone who's just very good at right now for again what the Lions really like to do, which is stop the run. They don't want anyone running on them at all, because again the whole idea is we'll make you want the whole Lions defensive philosophy keeps boiling down to this. We want to take away your run. We want to make you one-dimensional. Then we're going to send some pass rushers at you. Your quarterback's then going to start to hurry it up and start to get the ball out where he shouldn't, and then we're going to be opportunistic vultures.
That's an interesting point, because one thing that surprises me about where both these teams sit heading into this game, considering Mike Macdonald's history on defense and how effective the Seahawks have been defensively against their first three opponents, and then what you just touched on And yet both teams through 3 weeks sit near the bottom of the league with a -1 turnover differential. I kind of feel like eventually that's going to regress to the mean, probably for both teams, that Monday night might come down to some sort of maybe who takes care of the ball better or who takes the ball away more. Because it's surprising to me that both teams have struggled to take the ball away a little bit more this year.
A little bit. And again, part of that is that Jared Goff, especially in the
4 picks.
In the 4 picks, and like there was that weird incident where like I'm gonna chalk that one up in the Cardinals game to that play being blown dead, the one that like everyone that was on TV for pick 6, but it had like hit the 2-minute warning. I don't think it should have hit the 2-minute warning. I think the Lions should have been able to run a play, but they blew the whistle. Half the teams gave up on it. Jared Goff decided to make the throw for whatever reason. And so it looks bad on TV, but it doesn't go down as a pick. But yeah, Jared Goff characteristically last year was not one picked very well. And some of his sight, I mean, a couple of those have been unlucky. A couple of those have just been some bad sight from him. So I'm not quite sure what's going on in there, but that kind of contributes to that metric you talk about there as far as turnover differential, because the Lions have had picks in nearly all of their games, and again, a lot of that is because of their safety duo and Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph being the ones taking those downs, and they've had a few off their tip off the tips of their fingers as well. But yeah, right now I think the big issue is Jared Goff. He's not like he was a king at being secure with the ball last year. I think he gets a reputation for not taking chances, but I don't see it as a matter of taking chances, not taking chances. I think there's just situations where he thinks he can have that play over the middle sometimes that he just doesn't have right now. But I think the thing with Goff is he always kind of adjusts, right? He always kind of tweaks things around. We'll see if Seattle is the game for that.
I want to ask you this. This has nothing to do with the game on Monday, but it's certainly pertinent to the Lions situation, and the Seahawks do face them themselves later this year. Maybe the surprise team in the league so far in the NFL, the Vikings at 3-0 and blowing teams out now and doing it with Sam Darnold. And I don't think anyone expected to see that or had that on their bingo card. In your view, I want to get your opinion on this. Are they legit?
I don't look. I think we are entering a particular era where we have to realize quarterbacks are part of a system that you have to fit in. It has to work for you. You guys know this up in Seattle with Geno Smith. This was a guy who was once upon a time with the Jets, and everyone thought this is crap coming out, and like now we're already like pulling out the shovels to bury Bryce Young and things, or even some of these other rookies like Anthony or second years like Anthony Richardson and Caleb Williams. I genuinely like need to say this, but sometimes you just need a good fit. Now, on the other hand of this, I wonder how long Sam Darnold's kind of been out in that cold, and how much this is the fact that Justin Jefferson is a receiver that is good no matter what happens, and Aaron Jones is a pickup that I think nobody wanted to see the Vikings make. But it's definitely one where I think a lot of people like looked at the Vikings and thought it was more about their defense taking a step back this year. So far through these 3 games, what can you say? The 49ers, they got a win over. 49ers off to a very middling start so far. And the Texans game, I think,
we are aware. Yes.
Yeah. The Texans, I think, was the one that was the big surprise.
Yeah. Absolutely.
For everyone. But I think, once again, like what the Vikings did really well in that game, and they shut, again, I think the Texans really hurt without Joe Mixon in that game, I will say. But I guess I have to wait and see on the Vikings. I see their skill pieces, and I think Sam Darnold is running that system very well. But look, we talked about this with someone like, say, J.J. McCarthy before he went on IR too. But what a wonderful, good situation he's walking into in Minnesota, where he's going to have Justin Jefferson, who's had Nick Mullins and worse quarterbacks thrown, and he's still productive. He is the wide receiver who doesn't matter what quarterback he has, he is instantly and immediately and constantly productive. And you've got, a project in Jalen Naylor, I guess, and You picked up Aaron Jones, who is a phenomenal running back, and suddenly you've got an offense that is high-powered out of the gate, healthy and spry. And who's that linebacker they have? Van Ginkel, who has been I thought
Andrew Van Ginkel. Yeah.
Andrew Van Ginkel, who I believe so far has 3 sacks and an interception. He's just having a hell of a productive year to start right now. So they've kind of had everything going right for them so far. I think
that's a fun division, man. That division is going to be high entertainment this year.
Yeah, outside of maybe the Chicago Bears,
right?
We're kind of in an AL Central situation right now, where it's like, oh hey, Minnesota, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Detroit. Yay, Cleveland, yay. Oh, Chicago. And I still believe that Chicago at some point will figure this out and start to build well for Caleb Williams into the future. I think their problems more come on the fact that their defense is just really not good. Their O-line is extremely not good. And once again, I have no clue why teams decide to invest in DeAndre Swift, a man who seems allergic to being hit.
You guys know that all too well.
Yeah, especially I think it was on Hard Knocks. There was the line where Deuce Staley, who was the Lions running backs coach at the time, was even former Eagles running back himself. Deuce Staley was talking to Swift and telling him, you've got to get in there, man. You got to get in there, and you've got to challenge for those extra yardage out there. And he doesn't do it. And then he went to the Eagles, and behind that Eagles line, he was fine for a little bit, and then he didn't do it, and now he's just not doing it in Chicago. And look, they're asking Caleb Williams to do everything. And that is a guy who still needs to get adjusted to the NFL, and behind that just paper mache offensive line, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen there. It is a fascinating division, and I think working on the national side of things, I think the Lions got lost in the shuffle a little bit. Everyone was very excited about the Green Bay Packers. Everyone was very excited about the Chicago Bears. People, I think, understood the Lions were still one of the strongest teams in the league, but to your point too, I think a lot of people are just kind of shrugging and writing off the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah,
but
everyone likes the new shiny toy, right? And that was the Lions the last 2 years.
They also like
now
brands.
They got to move on to something else.
They also like brands, and what you had in Green Bay was this narrative of, oh my God, Jordan Love, they've got it figured out again already,
right?
And I don't quite know about that. I think through 3 weeks they've done very well without him so far, but they've also,
to your point about quarterbacks and fits and coaching and scheme fits, I had no illusions that Malik Willis was going to be effective at all in any way, shape, or form.
Listen, you got the wrong guy from Pride Detroit for that. I'd have to have you have Ryan Matthews, who is a constant believer in Malik Willis.
It's insane to me that he looked as good as he's looked the last 2 weeks.
But it's also the Colts and Titans.
Yeah, that's true.
Again, this is always the tough part. I wish there was a point where I'm all right, now I know what these teams are in the NFL, but I think we're still 2-3 weeks away from that right now. And that's the fun thing about the NFL. I cover soccer. I do a soccer segment for Fox Sports Radio, and they say in the Premier League, you know what teams are after about 10 weeks of their very long schedule or so. What teams are usually what they remain. But in the NFL, we've seen plenty of teams who turn it on even in the middle of October. Those bye weeks really help change a team, put them on a new track. And I will have to see how, I think the Vikings are already in the top tier of this league right now, but I also want to see at least 3 more games out of the Vikings, and they will start playing their division opponents. Their next 3 games are Packers, Jets, and Lions. And I think that's a much better test. That'll be a really good test so far, because I think of the teams they faced, the Texans were the one that, the 49ers are very curious how they've started, and the Texans are, I'm not quite sure what happened to that game. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. For me, I love how you talk about the league, because this is what I say every week. Fans love to overreact, and we can have a whole side discussion about where that comes from. I think the networks and some of the talk shows they have kind of fuel.
It's
that
also
fire,
the fact that we have an entire week cool down. There's no like, tomorrow's a new game in baseball.
We have all the time in the world to analyze and overanalyze. But I've been saying, to me, what excites me from the Seahawks perspective about this game is it's going to be a marker, right? It's going to be a milepost. Like we're trying to find out more about this team, and we've only been able to garner so much information because of the opponents that have been placed in front of them. Now we're going to find out, because this is a quality opponent on the road. Tell me, final question. This one's Monday night, so this one's different, and the crowds there have been phenomenal. Tell me about the atmosphere that you expect the Seahawks to walk into there on Monday night with the black uniforms, the whole thing.
That is a under talked part, is that the black jerseys are coming out. Lions fans have a bit of a checkered history thinking about black jerseys, mostly because they're mostly associated with a darker time for the franchise, where they were busting out those jerseys in the aughts or so. But I would also say that they look fresh as hell. And I think through 2 games so far, you've seen Ford Field be an incredibly loud, enclosed case of just chaos. I don't have the exact false start numbers up in front of me, but they forced quite a few on the Rams and Bucks this year so far. Now, it's a crowd that can turn, and I think they get impatient even when all things are going right. They got impatient with Jared Goff. It is still it's still a tough crowd. It's still a wrestling crowd that will get on you if things are just really going poorly. But look, this is a fan base that has been activated in a very large way. Even that Cardinals game was 50-50 Lions fans there. But Ford Field is the Thunderdome for these fans. They want this Lions team to have all the energy in the world. They are loud as hell. We've watched so many teams from the jump going to the silent count, because they know that they're not. Because they know that they're just not going to be able to call much of anything. We've watched guys cupping hands to their helmet just so they can try to hear what's coming over the headset. It's not a fun. The Lions fans have not made this a fun place to play, and they're very cognizant of that. And especially for primetime games, they're going to be loud as hell. There's already huge tailgates from across downtown, from the Eastern Market onward. And everyone's going to be there once again for Monday Night Football. They desperately have to turn it down on all these broadcasts and how damn loud, because it's an old style dome. And this thing is just, it's a cage. It's a cage for all this noise.
I tried to make it happen. I tried to get out there for the game. I'm just not going to be able to turn it around quick enough. But
if anyone is going to the game, though, let's. I'm going to. They're not a sponsor for us, and I wish they were. But Sweetwater Tavern, downtown Detroit, near Greektown. Best wings in town. Best wing. There's a couple other places that have really thrown their hat in the ring for that. A couple of friends I know in the Detroit sports Twitter sphere have Fat Boy Eat-a-thon lists of place around there. Word of Isaac, I believe, has some great recommendations on where to eat. But if you just want a quick basket of wings, Sweetwater Tavern, you're not going to get the best service, but that's not why you're there. You're there for the wings. Just get the wings.
You heard it here from Chris Perfett, Pride of Detroit. Thanks again for doing this. And maybe, you know what? Maybe we'll be back in the postseason talking to each other. Potentially, or maybe next year, because the schedule makers just seem to, the way that the formula works.
I don't like it.
Keeps happening. We went through a stretch. It keeps
happening.
We went through a stretch of about 8 years where it seemed like we always traveled to Carolina to play the Panthers during the Cam Newton years, no matter where we finished in the division or who we were slated to play that year divisionally. This seems to be that matchup for us. But the results are always good, and if it goes that way, if it goes the way it has the last couple of years on prime time, then I'm sure the folks at ESPN and Disney are going to be quite excited. And on the final note, somebody pointed out to me in the comments of my last show, because I talked about how I was a little surprised. I thought it was a little premature for ESPN to jump the Seahawks up in their power rankings to 4th this week. That seems a little artificially inflated, but right in front of the Lions. And then someone made the point, hey, they play on their network on Monday. Not a coincidence, trying to pump that up. I wish it was the only game. I hate the 2 Monday night game thing right now. I like when all eyes are on one game. I wish this was just the only game on. I hate the overlapping thing.
Well, there was really only one after about a few minutes. There was only really one game this past Monday. Let's be honest about that.
I think this one will garner the most attention.
I think you are correct. I would make the note, however, that I would allow for doubleheader Monday night games if Chris Berman was still allowed to call these games,
okay.
And he is not. And some people would say, like, why are you saying that, Chris? Chris Berman was a goof who just barely able to call the games and was always coming on. He would, have the late game because it would come on at, what?
Yeah, he was fine.
He would come on, that second game would come on at, 7:30, 8 p.m. Pacific. And, some ridiculous, Vikings and Raiders, and it's Chris Berman who can barely call the game. And I'm like, yes, that's how it should be. If you're going to force me through a second Monday Night Football, I want the crazy, half tired, half drunk uncle here to go, back touchdown. He's gonna go all the way. That's what that game deserves. But I think this will be the game to watch, other than Titans and Dolphins. That one don't impress me much.
Right, you don't like the matchup of Will Levis and Snoop Huntley?
Who's going to be starting for the Dolphins? Is it going to be Skyler, or is it going to be the Tim Boyle Laser Light Show?
It sounds like it might be Tyler Huntley, who they picked up last week.
Good Lord, yeah. Scratch this game off. Somehow the Titans are still going to lose that game, I'm sure, because they are in hell.
I don't know. Will Levis might be worse, but we'll find out.
They're in hell. They're in hell, but they're also in Tennessee. I mean, they're in Nashville. I repeat myself.
Right. Yeah, it's not a bad place to be.
I hate that place.
Always fun to have.
No, I hate Nashville.
Really? I heard it's wonderful.
Despise Nashville.
What? You get to go? You can go to John Bon Jovi's bar now and have him make you a drink.
Fake. It is the fakest place on earth. It is a place that it's a vampire of a city that presumes that it knows everything about country music. It is fake. You mentioned Bon Jovi's place. Fake. I live near Hollywood, and Nashville is more fake than anything there. It is the fakest place on earth. God, I hate that city.
You just torpedoed any chance you're going to work for the Chamber of Commerce in Nashville.
I don't care, and I don't care about bachelorette parties or whatever. It's terrible. I've gone there once, and I wanted to vomit.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. It has been a pleasure as always. And like I said, maybe we'll be doing this again.
We'll have to do some stuff around the draft sometime, because I know I'm going to start tweaking again.
100%. Yeah, let's do that. All right, my friend. Take care. Thank you very much.
Have a good one, Dan.
All right. See you. All right. What do you guys think? How do you feel about this game? It's a little hard to tell at this point of the week. We won't see the first injury report until tomorrow because of the delay in the practice schedule this week. I think that's how it goes. But how do you feel about the Seahawks going into what is going to be a raucous atmosphere, as Chris pointed out, in Ford Field, to play a Detroit team that's trying to send a statement to the rest of the league that they are a Super Bowl contender, that sits at 2-1, but hasn't really felt like they've put all phases of the game together for themselves. They're looking for that statement win, as are the Seahawks. Seahawks want to go in there and say, hey, look, as Mike Macdonald said this week, like, a lot of good things have happened. We're 3-0. We love being 3-0, but we aren't even to the team that we're going to be late season. A theme echoing what Greg Bell told us a few weeks ago, that he thinks this is going to be a progressively better team as the season goes. How are you feeling about their chances to go in there in that particular match out with a win? Let me know in the comments down below. And again, subscribe to the channel and check out down in the description all the ways you can support the show. Follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. I'm Dan. This is my show. Thank you for coming in and being part of the viewing and listening audience. I really appreciate all of the engagement. Forever and always, go Hawks. I'll see you in a couple of days. I will check in again because of the delay, not playing again until Monday. I'll check in again shortly before the weekend with updates on all those injuries and other news and notes that may happen over the next 48 hours or so. So we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.